Thanks. It's fantastic to be here. What a remarkable thing, gathering together and talking about shit theory. It's one of those things which just brings joy to my heart in the context of universities which are abstracting our existences and turning us into machines which are measuring and codifying the nature of intellectual work. And here we have an intellectual discussion about what it is to try and build good theory. So I'm going to start, because this session's on materiality, I want to start with the other side of what Danny was talking about. She was talking about bad theory rather than shit theory. I'm all with shit theory myself. But I want to put forward a claim which, and it's a theory, it's a single, terrible, it's universalizing. It's about human history and how we've got to where we are. So remember that, think of me as one of those shocking others that are doing the very thing, or at least appears to be doing the very thing that has been opposed by some of you as you've been talking. I want to argue that this is the grand little theory that I've been working on for 50 years, and I have a group of colleagues who are part of a journal called Arena, and have been working on this together, arguing, disputing, thinking about it. It's a theory that human history is characterized by the increasing material abstraction of social life in such a way that it reconstitutes everything, including time and space and embodiment and the nature of how we conceive of shit. When Danny was talking about shit, that shit was a different kind of thing than a thing which is called a stool sample, an abstraction of the thing we call shit, which turns it into the medicalized version, which we'll be talking about later when we get to questions of the body. Now, the whole thing, this argument is an argument that reconstitution, the abstraction of social relations materially happening through our lives, is part of what's affecting everybody, from customary peoples of the land to modern abstract intellectuals who are trying to develop theory. And so that effect, and it's no coincidence that we can actually say, what is the reason today we're talking about metaphors of shit and manure and humus? It's because of that cultural or ontological contradiction between the way in which we experience one level of our being as a more abstract thing which we're reflexively taking hold of all the time. We're forced into this reflexivity of our abstract selves and trying to reclaim the concrete, while the very mechanisms we use to reclaim the concrete, the body, the material, are actually reconstituting and changing that in ways that are quite horrific. So let me go on. So that's the key, and that coincidence allows us to talk about the simple difficulties of making good theory. Because theory is actually an incredibly simple thing. Now, that might sound a bit strange to say. Theory is actually very simple, and anybody who tells you it's not, who can't put their theory into a paragraph and make it clear, is a bad theorist. They're doing what Brett was talking about. Namely, there are two dimensions which make theory complicated. One is the question and the philosophical underpinnings of theory, and those philosophical underpinnings are quite important. I'm not dismissing them. But what happens is the edifice, what Brett was calling the monument of philosophy, comes in to stand between you and what the theory is. A theory is no more than an evidence-based proposition about patterns in the world. An evidence-based proposition about patterns in the world means that it's a claim, it's a theory, it has to be understood and developed. It's trying to understand what is happening in the world. That's what gives you good shit theory. That is, it's caught in that contradiction between the abstract and the concrete, between more abstract ways of thinking and more concrete, more palpable, more sensible. I mean, in the sense of not just hearing or seeing, but also the other forms of the palpable, feeling, generating, making, all those things. And those things are leading us into part of the problem. So here's a series of propositions about theory. Every evidence-based proposition about pattern in the world is theoretical. So what we've been criticising in our discussion so far is mostly Western, abstract, gender-based, for a large part, although lots of women have joined that with great alacrity now, that sense of abstract theory explaining things for itself. But every proposition which tries to explain something is a theory. And in that, if anybody says to you ever, I don't need a theory, I know what is, this is normal, this is what everybody says is true, or this is what my supervisor says is true, or this is what Foucault or even Donna Haraway says is true, then that's not good theory. That's not working with the ways in which we understand this world. In the sense, good theory is about being reflexive about the basis of one's claims about a proposition about the world. So second, theories can be big or small. I've just presented a theory which is incredibly big, but I've presented hopefully relatively simply, and I will take on any discussion about anything in the world you want to take on and describe how that theory will enable you to understand that particular thing. It has its own problems, but a theory can be big or small. A small or very particularistic theory has the problem of either being inconsequential, trivial, or wrong. And I say that very simply because the tighter your theory about something, the more you're going to leave out. And I can give you 1,000 examples of bad theories which are based on a proposition which seems self-evident from seeing, but when you put it into a larger context of what you can't see, then you see that that theory is completely wrong. And with lots of examples of that. So the more precise the theoretical claim, the more it needs to be aware of the contextualization of the thing you're making a claim about. Conversely, the bigger the theory, and I've just presented you with the most massive one of all, the bigger the theory, the less likely it is to explain in and of itself any of the particulars. So you've got to do the hard work of going to the ground and working out what that means and checking and rechecking and thinking through the nature of that theory to see if it actually holds still, because it may not. Second proposition, therefore, is theories can be big or small, but it's not the biggest or the smallness which is the problem, is how you flexibly take hold of them. Thirdly, theories can be good or bad or in between. But the least robust theories are those that don't reflexively attend to the basis of their theory making. And the basis of their theory making are sneaky things. And there are things which are called things like ideological orientations. If you haven't attended to the ideological orientations of your claim about a pattern in the world, it's when you're going to get it wrong. Because you may get it right by accident, but you've got it wrong for the wrong you've got it right for the wrong reason. Your ideological orientations will actually lead you into theoretical claims about the world. And I'm going to talk about the new materialism, because this is a session on materialism. I think it gets it mostly wrong. It's got a great normative orientation. I love the normative orientation which wants to center the human and get back to talking about the interrelationality of people in the world and the world in people and the ways in which animals and beings and other matter all matter in very similar ways. But the problem with that is it ontologically collapses the nature of the world into ways which make explanation much more difficult. I can come back to that. Well, I'm giving myself lots of things to come back to, but I only got 15 minutes. I'll probably never come back to that. So let me offer two examples of bad theory. The first one is replacement theory. The great replacement of white people by immigrants is just bad theory. It's not empirically true. Power is not operating in that way. It's simply untrue. So I'm picking on two things, including Charlie Kirk. So Charlie Kirk puts in place a theory, which he's drawn from a lot of other people, and he's not a conspiracy theorist. He's quite subtle. What he's saying, subtly but wrongly, is that white people are existentially at threat from the immigration and the multicultural nature of the world. Not true, and we can go into that in detail. But here's another one, because most of the people in the room will actually feel this to be quite a comfortable statement. Israel is effecting genocide in Gaza. It is not true. I will argue that till the cows come home. It is not true. It might be true, but you cannot claim that it's true. You can claim that it's possible, given that some right-wing fascists in the Israeli government, but Netanyahu is not effecting genocide. Netanyahu is exterminating Gazan people because it fits with the politics of algorithmic abstraction which enables him to stay in power. And I can go into that in detail as well. But the point of that argument is that when you think you understand something, step back into your ideological orientation, step back into how your theories relate to other theories to make sure that you're testing yourself against other things, and work out whether or not you're just doing that kind of ideological charge thing which lots of people agree with. So let's go back to this theory that across human history, life is becoming more abstract at one level. It's a theory that term at one level means that what I'm arguing is that level's become dominant and reconstitutive. It's changing the nature of who we are, including the nature of time and space. Now, that then leads us into talking about how does that relate to other theories. And if you take, I'm going to use two of them, historical materialism and the new materialism. They're the big ones in the materialism area, so why not take them on directly? Historical materialism was a genius move. What it did, although it's very limited, and even though I describe myself as coming out of the Marxist tradition, I think it's very limited. It makes a claim about the commodity. And it says, this is where Marilyn Strathern comes in to complicate it more, and we'll come back to her again in a way that I'll never come back to her, but nevertheless. The abstraction of the commodity is such that it means that when you're dealing with other people, you deal with them as abstract others. You go into a shop and you buy something and you do not care who has sold it to you. Whereas a gift, in the anthropological sense, the way in which that's passed on in an embodied sense carries the spirit, the how, of the person into the embodied exchange and carries the weight of that exchange into the social relation. Therefore, the social relations, this is Marx's genius, the social relations of the commodity are to abstract the relations between persons and for them to experience the commodity as living, fetishized in your world, making your world, and it does, there's no doubt about it, it does, because you are living that structure of materiality. That's the genius of that. Now, let's go to the new materialism. The new materialism, this is from Jane Bennett to Bruno Latour, their emphasis is the agency and vitality of matter. Now, I agree with everything you said. You were talking about the agency and vitality of matter, but you weren't, the claim was not a theoretical claim about the agency and vitality of matter in itself. The claim was the relational question of how you engage with that matter in its vitality. Because agency and vitality themselves have ontologically different forms across human history in cultural dominance. And in that difference, what's happening today is the post-structuralists are getting back to the agency of matter, ideologically reclaiming it from a much more abstract level, while not doing the grounding of themselves, and not just themselves, because you can go off and do it for yourself, socially thinking about what it means for humans to be humus. Now that's a key question. So what you've got there is a theoretical claim, and I'm going to try and summarise and finish now because I've probably taken up my time, is that materiality is always important, always has been important, and it has changed across that sense of what materiality is, has changed across human history, and at one level, a dominant level of disembodied relations has become increasingly abstract, so it's affecting everything you do, from the way in which you produce babies in the Philippines, to the way in which you trade body parts across the world. You see who I'm referring to. I've got various people in mind who have already talked as I was saying these various things. To the question of how you kill people in Gaza. What is happening in Gaza? It's a killing machine. You can't say genocide is happening and therefore you've understood the whole thing, because genocide is defined by the intentionality to kill a people because of who they are ethnically. That's the definition. Try and get around it and you've replaced it with another word like extermination. And that's, in fact, what is happening. It's worse. Now, that process of killing people still is blood and guts and shit on the floor. But that process of killing people is now managed by algorithmic machines like Lavender, which are using AI systems to work out what are the negotiated codes of conduct for a soldier and how many civilians can you kill per operative, which is designated by another program as possibly Hamas because they went to a meeting as a 17-year-old and they've been photographed and they've got a voice and photographic recognition of that person, and therefore we've decided we have to get rid of them. And then they've got another program called Who's Daddy, which will follow that person home and bomb them at home because that's the best way of killing bad guys, because that's the world we now live in. This abstraction ranges from the fact that most of our friends, children, are now finding their intimate partners through abstracting software. Most of social relations is now conducted, not necessarily opened up, but conducted through software. Most of our world is now AI oriented, and the revolution started not with simply defining what ChatGPT was, but finding that abstract relation gave you power, and that power is what is taking over the world at the moment. Thank you.